Reaction now with former Democratic presidential candidate and Army Reserve Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard. Great to see you, and thanks for being here. First up, what's your reaction to what we heard from the president, and where does that leave us with this conflict?
President Biden is not addressing the number one question that really he should address, which is the American people wondering, what is this going to cost us here at home, and why are we doing this? Why is the president making the choices that he's making? The reality that we're facing is that already with this increasing confrontational approach that the president is taking, we're seeing inflation rise, we're seeing fuel prices rise. Those things will only continue to get worse if the United States and partners start to put sanctions in place against Russia. We'll see our inflation continue to worsen. We'll see Russia retaliate. We'll see them likely use cyber warfare against our financial institutions, against our infrastructure. The United States will then have to retaliate, and we'll end up in this endless cycle of tit for tat that will hurt the American people in ways that are difficult to even estimate at this point. And the danger of this ultimately is these kinds of tactics that are tactics of warfare could ultimately escalate to the point where it's the United States versus Russia, two nuclear armed countries, where either intentionally or unintentionally we could end up having to face that reality of nuclear warfare and attacks.
If we weren't a part of this fight, where does that leave Ukraine?
Well, here's the reality that we need to be addressing here, which is, what is Russia's foremost concern? Their foremost concern is about NATO and the United States placing their troops and missiles and so forth on Ukraine's border, and they see that as a security threat. President Biden is in a powerful position right now where he could immediately take action to de-escalate this whole situation by stating the truth, which is Ukraine will likely never become a member of NATO. Why doesn't he just say that and guarantee it and say, you know what, NATO and the United States are not going to make Ukraine the next military outpost, and by doing so alleviate this crisis and prevent the American people and people in other parts of the world from facing the suffering that will come about from this continued escalation.
There is obviously consequences to the United States if we were to see this become an actual all-out war. There's obviously many consequences, but you bring up the energy picture. And if you were to see that gas never flow through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to Germany, which is becoming highly dependent on Russia for its energy resources, Germany would have to essentially turn to other European nations for their energy. That would create a squeeze in Europe and therefore a squeeze on global energy supplies, which could impact us here at home. Is that worth the fight?
It is more than a possibility, Sandra. It is a likelihood that this will occur. That is exactly the track that we, the American people, will be facing. We're already families, working families, are struggling right now. It's not the politicians or the big corporations who are struggling. It is working Americans who are struggling and seeing this thing play out and wondering, why isn't anyone looking out for our interests? Why aren't they clearly stating, hey, how are we going to prevent this disaster and this crisis from continuing to escalate, punishing and creating suffering for people who are already struggling right here at home just to make ends meet every day?
Does it behoove us to allow Vladimir Putin to gain more control?
I think that's missing kind of the core point here, which is, again, Russia's foremost concern is the United States and NATO placing a military outpost on its borders within Ukraine. Given it is highly unlikely Ukraine will ever become a member of NATO, let's just look at the world in these realistic views and picture and say what is not going to happen. The U.S. and NATO will not put their military outposts on the border of Russia and Ukraine.
Well, we've certainly
that serves everyone's best interest.
We've given Putin a bit more control in recent years. I mean, when you look at the energy that we are currently purchasing from Russia today versus just a few years ago, up 56% are purchases from Russia. That is a quickly changing situation under this administration that we're watching as well. Tulsi Gabbard, we're out of time with all the breaking news, and I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.